Okay, so I think I'm going to do 3 moves or exercises per video. 1 warm-up exercise to begin with, which could also be used as an exercise in its own right, and then 2 subsequent moves or exercises. And then as I kind of do more of these videos, you can sort of pick and choose to develop your own routine or program and do whatever you like with. So for this first video, we're going to start off with the bear crawl, and then go on to military push-ups, and then natural leg extensions. Okay, so first up, bear crawls. It's a really simple, fun little exercise, fun little move. Actually, before we start, this position that I'm in right now, this deep squat, I couldn't get into this position when I first started doing bodyweight training about a year ago. I was too tight. My ability, which still isn't very good, was utterly terrible, and I could not get down into this position. And it's a really, really good pose to be in. Try and spend a little bit of time every day in this position, even if it's just a few minutes. It's really good for breaking the habit of sitting down in chairs, which we do too much anyway, and probably especially at the moment when we're all going to be at home a lot more than we are used to being, and probably sitting down a lot more than we're used to sitting down. We already sit down in chairs far too much, because all it is doing is weakening and shortening our hip flexor muscles. It's weakening our glutes and our hamstrings and our whole posterior chain, and it's encouraging us to sort of, especially for working on computers, we're sort of like rounding our backs and tensing our shoulders, and it's just a really unhealthy position to be in. And this squat, it's good for getting you back in touch with kind of the strength of your legs and opening up your hips, and starting to work on the mobility of your ankles. Use it maybe as a rest position in between sets or reps of exercises. Just try and get into this position, even if it's just a minute or 2 a day to begin with. And if you can't get into this, if you're too tight and you have to have your heels up, try and come down into it using a wall or door, chair or something, just to feel what it's like. Even if it means letting go and you fall back over, just start to develop that strength and awareness of what it's like to be in this deep squat, and over time build up your strength and mobility to get into this position, because it's a really fundamental, basic position that we should all be spending more and more time in. Anyway, that's the deep squat. The bear crawl, a really simple little exercise that is great for developing compression strength between your abs and your hip flexors, and it's great for hamstring flexibility if you've got very tight hamstrings, and it's also good for firing up the shoulders, which is why it's a good warm-up for the military push-ups that we're about to do next. And it's also good for starting to activate your wrist mobility a little bit. So the position of the bear crawl is with your feet roughly hip width apart, and you want to maintain straight legs for this move, and your hands are going to be down on the floor. So if you've got very tight hamstrings and you can't get your hands flat on the floor here, instead of bending your knees, you want to keep your legs straight throughout this move. So just move your hands forward to whatever point you need to enable you to keep your legs straight while you move through the bear crawl. And the other thing with the bear crawl is we're going to move from one end of the room to the other contralaterally. Our limbs are going to move contralaterally, just how we walk. Our opposite limbs move together rather than we don't walk unilaterally. And likewise with the bear crawl, we're going to move contralaterally. So if I demonstrate from one side of the room to the other. that is the bear crawl. Yeah, look, and I forgot to say, we're obviously confined to small spaces at the moment, so perhaps do the bear crawl for 30 seconds, or you know, if you do have a relatively large space, decide for yourself, do 2 lengths of a room or 4 lengths of a room. It's really up to you how you program this. Enjoy. Right, okay, next up is military style push-ups. I think they're called military push-ups, I'm not actually sure. It's kind of like the chaturanga in yoga. The important thing is it's all about kind of the position of the elbows relative to the sides of the body, and what you want to really think about is keeping the elbows tucked into the sides of the body as much as possible to prevent elbows from flaring out, which is what they're going to want to do. But for this, really keep them tucked into the side of the body. There's a few reasons for that, but it's really about ensuring that the right muscles are targeted, which primarily the anterior deltoids, the front of the shoulders, the chest, and the triceps as well. But then also with this push-up is the muscles of that act on the scapula, the shoulder blade, also get worked, as do the serratus anterior, which is a really important group of muscles that often get overlooked, especially from traditional sort of weight training. And they're really important stabilizer muscles for anything, kind of any sort of like hand balancing you want to do. They're the muscles that really activate to keep you balanced on your hands, and it's just a really important little and often overlooked set of muscles. And this move, the military style push-up, starts to work them in a nice way. The other thing to think about with the push-up, any kind of push-up that is protecting your lower back, your lumbar spine. And the way to do that, I'll show you in a second when I demonstrate. The way to do that is to keep your glutes, your arse really nice and tight, and likewise your core, your abs, to take the pressure off the back. Because as you tire and weaken, what tends to happen is you start to slump in the back, and it puts a lot of pressure on your spine, which is really bad for you. Okay, so I don't mean to overcomplicate this, but just to run through kind of the checklist of things to really make the most of this exercise. If I go side on, first thing to think about is the hand placement, which is shoulder width or just wider than shoulder width apart. Hands, fingers spread nice and wide. Hands facing forward, obviously. Then what I want to do is think about maintaining the alignment between shoulders and wrists. Keep the shoulders over the wrists. Don't come back this way behind the wrists. Shoulders over wrists, and in time, if you want to, you can start playing with coming forward over the hands. If you want to start kind of working towards a planche or a planche push-up, you start developing that strength in the shoulders and the wrist mobility nicely as well. But anyway, for this, so hands placed correctly, shoulder width or just wider than shoulder width apart, shoulders over wrists, and then the next thing I want to think about is externally rotating my arms, so that the pits of my elbows are facing forward in this external rotation, and pits of elbows and biceps facing forward with the points of the elbows and the triceps facing backwards, and that is going to encourage your the bend in your arms to come down this way, so that you're not flaring out to the sides, but you're bending and coming down in this sagittal plane, I think. Not quite sure. So yeah, so external rotation of the arms, that also kind of just locks in the muscles around that act on the shoulder girdle and keep that nice and protected. And then the next thing you want to do is protract the shoulder blades so that you're up in this, gets you up in this kind of, is it angry cat in yoga? It rounds, when you protract your shoulder blades, like push the floor away with your hands, gets you up into this nice rounded upper back position, and that is what activates the serratus anterior, the muscles I was talking about before that are used for any kind of hand balancing work. And then when I come up into the high plank position, the starting position of the push-up, I want to think about keeping my glutes and my abs nice and tight to protect my lumbar spine. And then of course remember to breathe in on the way down and out on the way up. Let's just do a couple of reps. The view from the front. And go through that checklist again to get myself completely set. Do the downward dog at the end, but it feels good. So yeah, that was only what, 5 and 5, 10 reps, and I'm already really feeling that in my shoulders, chest, triceps, and the muscles around the back as well. And there's a modification for this and for pretty much all press ups or push ups. If you don't quite have the strength yet to do the full push up, the modified version is just on your knees. So exactly the same drill with your arms and shoulders, and still maintain tight glutes and a tight core, and then just lower yourself down and back up, down, up. Remember to breathe. And if you do this right, even this modified version, you really feel it work the muscles. It's not actually that easy, and that goes for the full version as well. So many people can do a press up and do it wrong, and you kind of can get to 30, 40, 50 press ups, but actually if you get the position correct with everything I just said, it becomes a lot harder to do. So even this modified version on your knees, where everything else is exactly the same, lowering down and back up. It works nicely. Next up is the natural leg extension. It's a really good leg exercise and glute exercise. Again, don't need any equipment for this. That's what I should have said as well. What I'm going to do, these exercises are going to be as much as possible without any equipment whatsoever. Or if there is any equipment needed, it's going to be minimal equipment and things that you can kind of improvise with from around the house. So natural leg extensions work the quads, hamstrings and glutes. And the important thing to remember this, well, let me show you, I'll demonstrate first of all this move. If I go side on again, you're coming back in that position and then back up. So lowering down and then back up, down and back up. Okay, so the important things to remember in this, I'll go through that again, but the important things to remember is, probably the most important thing, is to maintain a tight core and arse the whole way. So you don't break the tension in your hips. By keeping everything nice and tight, you're protecting your lower back in that position. If I break the line of the hips, I start to sag and lose that tension, and then I start to place undue pressure on the spine. So if I set up, my knees are sort of hip width apart, but you can play with the distance, see how it feels to have them closer, how it feels to have them further apart. Just be sort of careful on how the knees feel when you're going into this move. Keep glutes squeezed, core nice and tight, and come back while maintaining that nice alignment in the hips. Come down as far as you can and then back up. You really don't have to go back that far to start to feel this, and then start playing with how far down you go, and you should feel a really nice sensation in the front of the thighs and the quads, and likewise in the glutes. View from the front. You feel that in your hamstrings as well. if you haven't done these before, your hamstrings actually might start to cramp up, and that is a good sign. So that is the natural leg extensions. So we have bear crawl, military, I think, style push-ups, and natural leg extensions. It's up to you how many reps and sets of each you do. Play around with it. Have fun. Oh my god, I've got a cramp in my hamstrings. That's how you know it's working.